What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down 4 secrets to being a great quarterback. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you're a QB and you would like to get some work in with us this offseason, we are traveling out to 15 more states across the U.S. for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So next up, we will be coming out to San Francisco, Orlando, New Orleans, Charlotte, Dallas, the DMV, St. Louis, Honolulu, Boston, Cleveland, Austin, Seattle, Newark, Denver, and Los Angeles. So if you guys are local to those areas, would like to get some work in with us in a small group fashion, fellas, it's not going to be a million kids out there like a lot of these other camps. Check out that very first link in the description below. We'd absolutely love to have some of you out from our YouTube community. Let's get started. So first thing I want to talk about here, the first secret to being a great quarterback is the quarterback throwing motion, how you take the ball back. So many quarterback coaches have this wrong. They try to get their quarterbacks to all throw the same. They all have to throw a particular way. Every single QB, every single athlete, every single person is different. No two quarterbacks throw the ball the exact same. Everybody throws the ball differently. But you need to get to one key position that all NFL quarterbacks get to, guys, at the top of their game, and that is a backstroke. No quarterback lifts the ball straight to 90. They get to some point where they will close and rotate that front shoulder and take that football back and separate their hands. Nobody lifts the ball to 90 degrees and lifts the ball up anymore because that throws off their throwing sequence and can put a lot of pressure on their arm. And we are going to be showing an example of Cam Newton doing that and how that is probably the worst thing that you can do for your throwing mechanics. So you see when Brady takes the ball back, the whole reason I bring up the fact that quarterbacks are different, they throw the ball different, because he has a little bit different backstroke than most people. He takes the football back and the nose is kind of angled downward. That is completely fine. That is not wrong. And a lot of other quarterback coaches will try to say that with their younger guys, like, oh, that's wrong. Everybody throws the ball differently. The position that you have to get to is a position of a slight close with your front shoulder as your front foot is getting down. And we'll talk about this later in the video. But a slight close of the front shoulder as the front foot gets down, and that ball is not in a direct 90 position. It is in like either some people like to call it an opposite L. It does not have to be a perfect L. You just need to get some kind of backstroke position so the hip rotation can bring the arm up to 90. That is the position we want to get to. We want to go from backstroke to 90, but the 90 does not get there straight away. The 90 gets there from the hip rotation and bringing you from L, like opposite L. I'm just saying that so it's easier to understand, from opposite L to vertical L. So let's play this thing full speed, and then we're going to look at that example of Cam Newton and why you don't want to do this. Because trust me, fellas, when you're able to go from opposite L to vertical L or backstroke to vertical 90, there is so much more torque, there's so much more velocity because your hips are involved in the throw. So now we look at this clip here from Cam Newton and watch him throw. So there's a clear-cut difference between him and Tom Brady, obviously, in terms of their throwing mechanics. And Newton got a lot better with this when he moved on to the Patriots, got a lot better with his throwing mechanics. Whatever he worked on worked. But you watch him in this throwing position here, right? As the front foot gets down, where is his release point? He's lifting straight to vertical 90. So normally when it comes to a throwing motion, throwing mechanics, you think about your kinetic sequence, which is just a fancy word of saying the sequence of the throw. So every sequence, every throwing sequence, it's almost like hitting a baseball. You're loaded, you have the baseball bat back. You want to take a front stride, then the hips go through, then the shoulders, then the ball. But when you lift the ball to vertical 90 on the foot strike, essentially what happens here is that you're skipping the hip rotation step. You're open. Everything is vertical 90. So you're going to go front strike, then you're going to go shoulders, and you see how his shoulder and elbow are ahead of his back hip. That is why so many of you have shoulder problems and elbow problems, because you have the wrong throwing sequence. You see how his shoulder and elbow are carrying the brutal force of this throwing motion. That is not something that you can repeat, and that is not something that you can do over and over again without injury or without getting severely fatigued. Now, let's look at this Brady example. Let's go back to the Brady example. Like I said, he doesn't have the typical vertical L backstroke, but watch what happens. Front foot gets down, and I want you to see his hips. You see how his hip is coming through before the ball? That is why Brady's been able to do this for so dang long, because there's no pressure on his arm right here. That is torque. That is separating your upper half from lower half and getting to a backstroke because the timing of the motion is better. There is no pressure on his elbow or on his shoulder in this specific portion because his shoulders closed on the foot strike and he got to a backstroke. Now I'm going to play the Newton clip one more time and then show an example of Matt Ryan, who's got the more traditional vertical L or opposite L to vertical L. So let's watch Matt Ryan throw this thing here. So watch when he goes back. L. He gets to that L position when? on foot strike. His shoulders slightly closed. He's got that backstroke position. Now watch what brings his arm up to vertical L. The hip rotation. You see how his back hip is rotating through before the football does. That is where we want to be, fellas. That is how I generate power, but that is also how I keep my arm healthy. So the first secret to being a great quarterback is make sure we get to that backstroke position. Now, the second key to being a great quarterback, like I said, we brought this up a little bit before, is the throwing sequence, but most importantly, your front stride. Elite quarterbacks cannot overstride. You have to time up your front stride with the shoulder rotation if you want any kind of power on the ball. So I'm going to play this clip for Matt Ryan one more time because you see, when he strikes the ground with that front foot, what are his shoulders doing? His shoulders are closed. Front foot down, shoulders loaded. Because now, him transferring his weight from his back leg to his front leg with a quick front stride allows what to rotate through? His hips. And when you can get your hips to rotate through, you get that back leg to come through, there's so much more power on the ball. So let's look at this clipper from Joe Burrow, right? So Joe Burrow, obviously, like kind of newer age quarterback, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, they've all been doing it for a while. So let's look at a quarterback who's maybe not been doing it for a while in the league. Let's look at Joe Burrow's form. So watch when he throws and watch how his front foot strike times up. So let's see this here. He goes back and again, doesn't get to that typical vertical L, but he doesn't get to the horizontal L either. It's a little bit higher, but his shoulder is closing when? On foot strike, because that quick front foot strike times up your motion. So let's think about this. If a quarterback were to overstride, so many quarterbacks tend to have like that very long front stride, almost like a pitcher in baseball, because they push off of their back foot. So a good position of balance for every single quarterback to be in is you want your back foot to be underneath your back shoulder, aka you want to keep your weight back. So when you have your weight back, all that weight that you have here on this side of your body, that half of your body, you can transfer it to the front foot, and that weight transfer is what gives you power. But the issue is when that back foot is under your shoulder, your feet are kind of a little bit more on the narrow side. So that's why a lot of old school quarterback coaches taught, and I taught this at one point too as well, because the game, you got to evolve with the game as a coach. But when your feet are super wide and you try to push off of that back foot, your back leg is going to trail behind, your hip's going to trail behind, and you're not rotating through. Yes, you're taking a quick stride, but it's still the same difference. You're still too wide. You still won't be able to generate power. So when guys will close down their foot, they're definitely in a more powerful position, but you're more susceptible to a long stride. So we got to make sure as QBs, I do not push off of this foot. What I'm thinking about doing is I'm just shifting the weight from my quad. This is something that I tell a lot of my quarterbacks, and it seems to help them out a lot. Don't think about pushing. You shouldn't think about your foot at all. Think about getting your weight back, and you were just simply shifting weight from back leg to front leg. Because when you push and you have the long stride, why is that bad? When you stride out, because remember, when you get that back foot down, what are your shoulders going to start to do? You're starting to rotate those shoulders back because the weight transfer gets the front foot down. But if your front foot doesn't get down until you are here at this vertical 90 position, it's going to be the same result as not having a backstroke. You're going to take that long stride, but your sequence is going to be off. So your shoulder will be coming open, same time your hips are coming open. And that's not how we generate torque. Torque is generated from having a quick front stride. So stride gets down, hips go through, but the shoulders and your weight stays back. So you can kind of have that rip or that coil to the throw. Just like that clip we talked about from Brady, how he gets to the backstroke and the hips bring the arm through. Just that's what that's for. It's to generate power and it's to generate velocity on the throw. But that long stride, all your weight gets forward, your throwing arm sequence is off, and we do not have any power. So make sure, fellas, that we take that quick front foot strike so my throwing sequence can generate torque. Just like hitting a baseball bat. The bat is back here, your front foot hits, you're squishing the back bug to bring the hips through, and the bat trails behind. You're doing the same exact thing when throwing a football. You have the shoulder loaded, aka keeping the bat back, front foot gets down so the hips can go. But I cannot do that without a quick front foot strike of the throw. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. I'm going to show both of these examples just so you guys see. And again, Ryan has a little bit longer stride than Burrow, but it times up with the shoulder sequence. That is what's key. Okay, so now, third secret to being a great quarterback is how you guys can move in the pocket efficiently. So, this is probably one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to the quarterback position because so many guys teach this incorrectly and they have no idea what they're talking about. So, how many times have you seen guys at a camp before or practice when they're in the pocket or they're working a pocket drill and you got a coach in front of them and they're doing the typical wave drill where a coach points one way, points another way, points another way? And how many times have you seen quarterbacks take their back foot and they do that like kick step where they step with one foot and they kick behind? You never want to be that guy because that is probably the biggest wasted motion you can have in the pocket possible. So I'm going to explain why. So watch Brady in the pocket right here. Let me just ask you one question first. When you're in the pocket and you're trying to get the ball out of your hands, just like the last two examples we saw of Burrow, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, everybody, where did they have their weight? They had their weight on their back leg, right? They were keeping their weight back because they have to be ready to throw the ball at any time. So watch Brady when he moves in the pocket. What foot does he move with first? He's moving with his front foot first. And every single quarterback coach in America who doesn't know what they're talking about is going to be like, oh, well, they won't know what to say to that because every single quarterback that they come across, you got to move back foot first. You have to move back foot first. And I'm going to tell you something right now from a guy who played the position. When you got guys coming at you trying to take your head off who weigh 250 plus pounds, depending on whatever level you're at, you could care less what foot you were going to be moving with first. You care about getting out of trouble and getting the ball out on time. So chances are, if you're trying to get the ball out on time, you're going to have weight loaded on your back leg because that's the base that we train at. That's the base that we talk about to be the most efficient. So naturally, guess what foot moves first when you have more weight back? Your front foot is going to move first when you have your weight back. That's just how it is. You stand on one foot. Everybody, you can just stand up right now. Stand on your right foot and just have somebody push you over. What foot are you going to step with if you're only on your right foot? Your left foot, because whatever foot's lighter is going to move first. So when he moves in the pocket here, watch what he does. He moves with his left foot. He hits top of the drop, left, right again. That's what we call like two drifts in my lingo with the quarterbacks that I train. Because the reason why he's moving with that front foot first, guarantee you he's not really thinking about it, but he's trained so much to have weight on his back leg that he knows he can't get rid of this ball if he has weight on his front foot. If he starts kick stepping with his back foot, one of two things is going to happen. If he goes right foot back, all of his weight is going to be forward. So if he tries to throw off of that right foot, he's going to have no weight transfer. His weight's going to trail behind him and his shoulders will beat his hips. Just like that long stride that we just talked about because all of his weight is forward. That's why the long stride is bad. Now, another thing that'll happen is he'll go back leg. He'll kick with the back leg. He'll step with the left. Then he has to take another step with the right foot to load up to get his weight back, which is wasted motion. Look at how quick this thing's out of his hands. He just goes left, right, out. It's 3 steps. He goes 1, 2, 3. It's out of there. Imagine if he went back foot first. If he went right, left, right, left. That's 4 steps. That's too long, and his weight is off. So, fellas, if you're doing pocket movement and you have to think about what foot is moving first, move with the front foot. This is as clear a day as example as how, again, it doesn't matter what foot you move with, if I'm being honest, as long as you can get it out and be on time and be efficient. But when you're moving backdoor, when you're moving up, when you're retreating, moving forward, naturally you will move with your front foot first if you have a good base of your weight being loaded back. Because you need this weight loaded. You need that weight loaded because we have to transfer it. You see how he's shifting weight from his quad to the front foot. What are his shoulders doing? His shoulders are going back. You see how he takes the ball back? He's got a backstroke position. The front hip is starting to rotate. That he couldn't do this if he had all of his weight on his front foot while he was moving in the pocket. You need weight back in order to transfer, in order to get your hips involved, because that's the type of throw we have to make. So naturally, you probably will move with your front foot first. That's just how it is. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great example here from Brady showcasing the correct pocket movement. Again, fellas, it's about getting the ball out on time and getting out of trouble so you don't get your head taken off. Not necessarily about, oh, what foot should I move with first? Okay, so now, fourth secret to being a great quarterback is the arm angle. So that is like everybody loves to talk about like a lower arm slot nowadays. You know, you see Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray making all these baseball type throws, and that's great. You know, I think it's great for the game. It's new throws that guys can try and get better at, but people blow it way out of proportion because like, again, you know, it's Patrick Mahomes. He's making these big plays. Like, and you know, there are times for the arm angle and the arm slot, throwing sidearm, and there are not times for it. You have to be able to do both because there are many different arm slots playing the quarterback position. So we're going to look at this clip from Joe Burrow warming up. He's throwing to his coach right here. This is almost like he's throwing like a quick slant, a quick hitch, maybe a quick screen. And watch what he does with his footwork here. He goes back, he retreats, and that is the low arm slot that everybody's talking about nowadays. Because traditionally, everybody loves to talk about, like, hey, you want to be 90 degrees directly over the top. I'm sure a lot of you have had quarterback coaches say, hey man, you got to throw that, you got to come over the top more. You got to come over the top. That's why you're missing low, or that's why you're missing in the dirt. It's so wrong what they say, but at the end of the day, you probably heard that before. Now, this type of arm slot, like this is like kind of like a 3/4 arm slot. It's not like quite like the Mahomes sidearm, but it's not quite 90 degrees. It's like more like 3/4. The time you want to use this is when you have to throw around people, fellas. Burrow is working a situation where he is throwing like a quick route and he has to throw this thing around his tackle. So what do you think he has to do to throw it around his tackle? He has to change up his arm slot. He has to throw this thing wider. He manually does this. So this is not something that he throws at with every single throw. Because if he's trying to throw a touch ball over the top, he's probably not going to have this arm slot. He's probably going to have a little bit higher of an arm slot so he could snap his wrist higher. In this case, he's got to snap his wrist lower because he has to get this thing around a tackle or maybe between two defenders, whatever it is. So that's why he changes up the arm slot. This is by no means an arm slot that you need to have on every single throw. You should have many different arm slots for many different situations. And it all comes down to being disciplined. You have to be able to stay square with your front side. You can't let your front side dip down, dip out. You can't let your head fall off the line because any effect with this front side will affect this release point tenfold when you were trying to change up the slot of the arm. So let's play this thing again, full speed. Now, we're going to show another example of Burrow throwing with a higher arm slot to show you guys that that's not his arm slot on every single throw. So this is a touch pass that he throws here. Now, he's got a little shoulder arc. He's coming over the top a little bit more there because he's got to throw this thing with some touch. Let's go back to this again. So watch where his arm slot is here. Again, you see the shoulder closed. You see the backstroke not lifting to 90, just like the front clip. Front foot's getting down. But watch where his arm slot is. It's not very low, is it? It's probably a higher arm slot. This is not that like low sidearm. This is more so like traditional, like 90 over the top, I guess you could say. That's completely fine too, fellas. It's not like it's wrong if you don't have a 3/4 arm slot on every single throw. I get so sick and tired of people always talking about that on social media, saying that you got to have this and you got to have that if you want to be elite. Dude, like I said in the very beginning, every single NFL quarterback throws the ball differently. It comes down to knowing when to change up certain things, when to throw around defenders, when to change the ball over the top. But there are key consistent things that all NFL guys do. Their arm slot is not one of them. They change it up based on the given situation. So don't worry too much about the arm slot. Worry about your throwing mechanics. Worry about staying disciplined with the front side, not dipping, not leaning, not ripping your shoulder open, and worry about being an accurate, consistent, and a quarterback who could throw the ball at any speed and at any level. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Again, great example of Burrow coming over the top after having that lower arm slot, having to throw around a tackle. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys as usual. And again, fellas, if you guys would like to come out to one of our off-season training camps, we're traveling out to 15 states across the country. So if you guys are local, one of those cities, or would like to travel, we'd love to have you guys out. It's going to be a small group setting, like I said, not a million kids out there, so we'd love to have you in attendance. I'll see you guys next time. Very first link below.